Testing. And can you hear me? Nice. Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
It's like Sue's iPad is joining us. Maybe Sue will be here also.
Yeah.
YouTube.
There she is.
There's Sue. And then we'll just wait for Princess to show up. Right here. Oh, there she is.
Good morning.
Hi.
Oh, we have to pin it.
That is pinned.
It looks fine. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
It's all done. All right. Are we all set and ready to go? Let's get this fun day Sunday started. Gonna come to the side. Sorry. Let's come to the center parts of our mat and bring our feet all the way out to the edges of the mat. I'm going to make a conscious effort now to step our toes in towards the center line of the mat. So we have the inward rotation of the legs. We're going to bring some straightness to the legs. Remember, we're just warming up. So as we begin this warm-up process, range of motion and amount of effort we're able to put into this is going to build over time. So let's just be mindful of our body and let it warm properly and perform properly as we begin our exercise. We're going to keep that in mind. I'm going to ask you to bring your hands and separate them nice and wide. And I'm going to turn the palms to face forward as we bring our baby fingers onto the hips. And I like you to roll or push your hips to the right and then to the left. And then let's circle like we're doing kind of a little bit of a hula hoop and then reverse that circle. And then bring it back so that we're center. We're going to find balance between the left and right foot. I want you to shift all the weight to the left foot and feel where the pressure points are in the foot. And then do the same thing with the right side. And for me, it's mostly in the heels, but I want to really try to figure out a balanced effort here where we have the ball of the big toe of each foot and the heel of each foot nice and active. Now, with the legs relatively straight, with a balance between pressurized front and pressurized back, the ball of the big toe and the heel, with a balance in that direction, directional balance, I'd like you to take your legs and try to pull them into the center of the body. And if you feel your inner thigh muscles begin to activate, beautiful, that's what we're looking for. What's the matter? What's going on over there? Get those arms up, girl. Now, squeeze your elbows together, expand through the chest. And then with the release of this, bring the hands forward and let the baby fingers connect and then serve out a tray. You're going to draw back the hips. And the knees are going to find a natural break to them, but I'd like you to pull back till you feel a tension forming in the lower back. If that tension is a little bit too aggressive right now, remember, we're still warming. I'd like you to just push forward slightly with the hips, but if you can, be back as far as you can as you serve out the tray. And then let's draw the elbows, trace the rib cage with those elbows, and make little fists out of the hands and point your thumbs up at the sky. Now, make an effort to pull back the elbows a little farther. And if you're doing so and you find your neck feels a little compressed, like you kind of grow through the neck, round out the chest, and squeeze your elbows behind the body, squeeze them together, and then fold forward. Now the depth and range of motion is going to build over time. So I'd like you to come down and up, pull the butt back as you lower, as the upper body gets closer and closer to the earth. We're just expanding the range of motion through the hips. I want you to minimize any kind of spinal flexion, keeping the spine in extension, and really just considering the hips as the chop point of our folding right now, drawing back, folding down, achieving a little more, even if it's just fractional, it's all good. Let's do this for a couple more times. And as you stand tall, let the arms push forward, bring the forearms together, baby fingers touch, fingers separate widely, and serve out the tray. Nice. Now, try to lift the arms. Take a big breath in, and as you exhale, bring hands together and back over heart. Let's draw the elbows out and away from the body. So they're drawing them up, kind of pulling up and we're pulling out, but we're keeping a little bit of pressure between the palms. I like it now to pull the shoulders up towards the ears pull them backwards and then kind of settle them down towards your hips, keeping those elbows nice and high. Fold halfway forward. And rise back up.
We're still squeezing our inner thighs.
Yes, we're still squeezing our inner thighs.
Let's check in.
Yes, this is all about rehabilitating muscles. We got them actively working for a long period of time. So yes to the answer. Yes, we're still squeezing our thighs.
Yes to the question.
Yes, come all the way back up. Push your hands to the sky. Step your feet to face forward. Take a big breath in. You can stop squeezing your thighs for those that need that extra bit of instruction.
Yeah.
All right, now reach, reach, reach. Yes, we're having a little bit of a domestic here. Let the arms pull down as you draw back your hips.
Pull all the way down, hang out a little bit, take a couple breaths.
Yeah, I like this.
Kirsten likes this so much, we're just gonna do this for the rest of the class. All right, just enjoy that nice unweighting. Play around a little bit now, like let the body drift forward. And as you drift forward, I'd like you to get the sensation of pressure under the front part of the foot, and then drift backwards. And get that pressure sensation more in the heel. And between the front, drifting forward, and back, drifting backwards. I'd like you to find an equal weight bearing in your foot. When you find that, so it'll be a little different for everyone, but when you find yours, I'd like you to inhale, extend to a flat back. I'd like you to bend both knees now, keeping the weight in the feet relatively equal. Remember, we kind of established that pressure sensation. And if you have to drift forward or backwards, take an opportunity to do that now. Now, step the hands to the inside of the feet. If you can, bring the palms to the earth. So we're getting a little deeper down into this. As you inhale, expand the chest. As you exhale, push your hips to the sky and let the upper body fold down. Nice unweighting again. And now push the palms, extend the spine, bend the knees, and sweep the arms to the sky as you come all the way back up. Good morning. Now, bring hands over hearts. Take your legs and chopstick them, pull them together, draw your butt backwards, sweep your hands out in front. Let's cup the fingers so that we have a wide distance between the fingers themselves. And much like you would reach around a grapefruit or something, you got a nice global, global,
Globe.
a globe, sorry, global. I'm going worldwide here. Nice globe type of presentation of fingertips, fingers, pushing the fingers now. We're going to create a power between them, almost like a nice vortex of power. As we push the fingertips together, I'd like you to rotate the elbows down towards the earth and extend the arms straight. And as you inhale, I'd like you to raise the arms ever so slightly and then bring hands over heart, stand tall, push the hands to the sky, lengthen it all the way up, and then fold it all the way down. And step and walk hands, step feet to your plank. Now, in our plank, what we're looking to do right now is to elevate the hips up in height, equal in height to the shoulders. And once we do that, I'd like you to kind of hollow out your belly and see if you can kind of C-curve the upper back a little bit. Almost like there's an imaginary string pulling to the sky. The head right now is not really much importance, all but for the fact that it just hasn't fallen off our bodies. We have it actively working muscles of the neck, keeping the head elongating. And then we're going to pull the hips upward and backward. And down dog. Push up on the tippy toes. Drive the heels to the earth. And let's do that a couple more times. And then keep the heels driving to the earth. And bend your knees. Yes, we're still in down dog, but we're kind of bending the knees towards the earth. And then we're going to just like let them touch. And then pull the hips all the way back up to the sky. And drive the heels back down to the earth. And then we're going to step the feet forward. And separate them to the width of the mat. And then turn the feet
And it's really the legs turning into the center line of the body. As you inhale, extend to a flat back. As you exhale, drift the hips backwards. Let's walk the palms onto the shins. Let the elbows spiral outwards. So not into the body, but away from the body. Let's take the shoulders and pull them towards the hips. As we keep the elbows externally rotating, shoulders pull to the hips, palms push the shin, and spine and neck extend. Drift backwards till you feel like you're going to topple, and just hold off on doing that. Give me as much weight bearing as you can back to the heels. And now bend the knees, elongate the spine, unhinge through the hips, let the arms release and come all the way up to standing. Those are still aiming at the center line of the body or center line of the mat, whatever you prefer to use as your point of registration. Reach the fingers high to the sky, cup them while they're up there. Do my globe routine. That global routine comes back into play. Spiral the elbows inward, fingertips push together. Take a big inhale, and as you exhale, bring hands over heart. Step your toes straight forward. Cup, fingertips, elbows high, arms extend out. Rotate the elbows in towards the earth. As we extend the arms out farther, draw the hips backwards. We're going to form a little tension here in our butt and lower back. This is how we roll with this right now. Draw the hips back, almost toppling, but not quite. Keep the arms reaching forward. Let's lean in a little more. As the arms extend forward, we're leaning the upper body. Keep a big inhale. Now take your heels, try to spiral them away from the center line of the body. We have those nice, strong muscles on the hips working hard. You should feel this nicely active now. Now, reverse this. Take the toes, the ball of each big toe, push it into your mat, and then try to spiral those into the center line of the body. Try to really rotate them in. Get those inner thigh muscles. Oh, working hard. Now, relax everything. Stand tall. Sweep the arms to the sky. Fold it all the way down and have a seat. Okay. How's that for a warm-up?
Hard.
I'm done. I'm all over. This is it. Excuse me while I grab some agua, water. All right. I'm gonna ask you to cross your legs.
Can't do that.
You can't do that?
No.
So since someone can't do that, let's take one leg and cross it.
There we go.
So we have like a nice four shape going on. We're going to bring our hands out in front. We're going to kind of walk forward the upper body. Now, watch what happens with the body. We kind of do things that favor our movement patterns. Sometimes our movement patterns aren't effective, so we're going to try to make correction as we go. And as we walk forward, I like to try to keep the shoulders square. Now, elevation of the knee is all relative to a lot of mobility concerns relative to your hips. And if you can, you're just going to let that leg just hang out, which is the two bars of the core. The straight bar is that left leg. I'd like you to take the left foot and flex it. And if you felt an instant pull right behind the knee or in that area, perfect. Now, drop down a little more, hold on this. We're going to breathe here a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about breath too. Many cases when we start to feel stress, a lot of our breathing comes from the upper chest, like right around the shoulder area. Right now, I want you to try to expand through the ribs, like drawing the belly or drawing in from the belly, the air of your body. Try to feel your belly button kind of push out and the ribs expand each and every breath. And let that much deeper breath help calm where we are. And it helps to provide a little more leverage or depth to this stretch. Let's try that. Use the breathing to accommodate that. Keeping the shoulders square to the earth. And walking back up, we're going to switch up legs, extend one or the other, finding that nice four, taking the upper body nice and square, walking forward. Don't worry about that right foot yet. I just like you to kind of fall into this with purpose. It's a purposeful fall, keeping the spine growing. And then let's incorporate some nice breath. Use your belly button, let it just kind of push out. And it seems kind of contrary to what we say about sucking our belly button in, but breath-wise, I like you to try to fill from the bottom of the lungs today, having that belly expansion, ribs expanding, calming, deep breath. Now let's flex the right foot. Oh, I feel it almost instantly. I don't know about anyone else. All right, I'm going to hold on this for another couple breaths. And then we're going to get into some really serious work. Ooh, I'm so excited. All right, let's walk it back up. Extend the legs all the way up. Come into a staff pose. Separate the feet nice and wide. Let's bring hands up over heart. And then as we sit nice and tall, this is such a great pose for us. Although we spend a lot of our day doing this, one of the things we can do correctively, for those that do spend a lot of time sitting, is that this type of posture is important, because the opposite or the opposing of this is just to kind of have that collapse, like a candle melting and kind of falling to one side, which is what we typically tend to do. And it allows that low back to become more of our problem source. And right now we're kind of training the muscles to be long through the spine, more engaging through the spine, more embracing of it by elongating us in our nice staff pose. Now we're going to bring a little more hip flexors into play by keeping long, so we're not C-curving as we go back. We're going to keep long the spine as we lean back, and we're going to lift the right leg up, and then lower, and then lift the left leg and lower. This is going to impart more work into those hip flexors. Now the length that we're doing this, we have a lot of flexion already, so this is not the most optimal hip angle for really developing those muscles, but it's a good start. Okay, and then now we're going to Pilates style, C curving the spine, roll it back down, and I'm going to move forward just a little bit so I don't bump my head. And then when we arrive on the earth, I'd like you to keep your feet separated to the width of the mat, and then rotate the legs in towards the center line. Notice how I said legs, not the feet. So I can turn through the ankle joint. I want to turn through the hip joint. So I want you to kind of take the legs and rotate them internally and keep that nice and active. You just hollow out the belly.
Where are the arms?
Arms can be wherever you want them to be, sweetie. Now, I'd like you to take your chest, make it nice and proud, and then take your belly button and kind of hollow out. And then while we work two counterposing things, seems like they would be conflicting. I want you to hollow out the belly, but I want you to also fill it with air. So let's take a deep breath in, starting with the belly button and expanding and bringing it upwards into the ribs. It's going to take a little bit of practice to kind of really learn how to breathe like this. In many cases, when we sit, we start this process of really restricting how this breath mechanism works. So we're going to practice it a little more. This is an exercise you can do all by yourself. So we still have that inward rotation of the legs. Then we're going to kind of pull the belly button in, but we're going to try to bring air down so it bulges out. And fill the ribs, and then hold it for just a second, and then kind of relax everything. Let the toes aim up at the sky. And that's a good little exercise to do when you have time to do it during the day. Let's step the feet in, and we're going to do a little bit of pelvic rocking now. So this is let's get off the tailbone, and let's get the girdle of the pelvic girdle that is more connected. So you want to feel the low back skin touching the mat. So that's basically tucking the pelvis under, and it's just a little bit of notification to some of the muscles that we want them to be active. And that's the muscles at the front. So now that we've kind of engaged our six-pack muscle, so we get that spinal flexion or extension in this case, I'd like you to keep it active, and I'd like you to take your hands and now reach them above the chest, and then drop the chin into the chest, And then peel the shoulder blades up off the earth. So this is what's really a crunch. A lot of times people engage with this differently, but we have a nice solid activation. I can feel my muscles, my rectus abdominis, that six-pack muscle, or a pair of them. Actually, you got one in each part of your septum. And we're actively working. Mine are kind of shaking a little bit. Are yours?
No.
Then lift higher. Okay. So we should feel a nice, solid, active use of these muscles. If you're not getting that little bit of tremble, curve up a little more, try to reach a little higher. And not use the arms. I want you to use the muscles with the six-pack muscle to engage and pull that spine into more rounding and then lower back down. Kirsten was feeling it in her neck. If you felt it there, that's because you're trying to lift with your head. I'd like you to try to lift with those muscles. So it takes a little bit of practice to get them engaging correctly. So we're going to try this one more time. Hands are still reaching up in the sky. Chin drops into the chest. And we peel up from the neck to the middle part of the spine, as many vertebrae as we can. And the more you peel up, the more that six-pack muscle is working. So I'd like you to kind of reach, rotate in, take a big breath. And as you release it this time, let the arms sweep behind the head, extend out the legs now, and take a big breath in. And pull fingers and toes opposite directions. Feel a nice extension through the whole body. And then when you release the breath, we're going to roll onto our tummy. I'm going to move a little bit more down my mat. So I rotate over onto my tummy. Look at Kirsten taking a slacker position. Mine, I'm sorry, just kidding. Now, I've got to talk to you about elbow positioning. So in many cases, the load that we impart is based upon where we place the elbows. Right now, I've got a nominal amount of workload coming into my core section because I have my elbows well below the height of my shoulders. So I'm in a forearm mini cobra, if you will, type of thing. And I've got my elbows situated so that they're a little wider than the width of my shoulders. And I ask you to do the same. Right now, the back of the head is probably working hard because you're looking at your screen, figuring out what the heck is he doing. But I'd like you to kind of look down at the ground and pull the back of the head towards the sky. Not by pulling the chin in, just by pulling from the back of the head, feeling the muscles of the neck, working to lengthen through the neck and pull the back of the head to the sky. Now, if you popped out of your shoulders while doing this, I'd like you to kind of sink down. Find that nice external rotation of the shoulder sockets. So you can kind of feel like the chest is descended towards the earth. And now we're going to hollow out the belly. And if your toes have been pointing, I want you to step them in so they're tucked under. And try to just play around with the feet a little bit so that the heels aim mostly up at the sky. And now as you hollow out the belly, I want you to pull the neck long. I'd like you to keep the upper body from rising out of the arms. So you kind of sink into the earth. Now, take your hips and begin to raise them up into the air. And as you do so, I like you kind of tuck under. Remember how we practice this on our back, where we made the skin of the low back touch the mat, and the muscle that you use to enable that, pelvic rocking, if you will. Now, while we keep that active, we're progressing the amount of work here. And if it feels like it's too much, just hold where you are. But if you can now, take the center of the spine and try to pull it towards the sky. And just let the head fall. Don't worry about it right now. And then let the hips gently lower back down to the earth. And pull the back of the head long and high. Please avoid craning the neck, which is basically pushing the chin forward. You'll feel a compression through the neck once you do that. So if you feel it, don't do it, right? Sink the upper body. Keep the toes tucked. Hollow out the tummy. Tuck that pelvic girdle. Raise those hips. And now pull the center of the spine towards the sky. And if you can, take the knees up off the earth. Drive the heels backwards and downwards. Drift the hips backwards so that the elbows present a little farther than they were previously. The shoulders are pulled back with the elbows. And then drop the knees down, pull the hips up and back, and extend the arms out into child pose. A lot of core work there. Did you feel it? This is Kirsten. All right, let the head relax, sickening come the forehead onto the mat. And then bring the spine back into extension. That's going to elevate the forehead up off the mat. You're going to bring your forearms up and off the mat. You're going to separate the fingers nice and wide. And it's kind of like a wedge of sorts, where the fingertips being the zero part of the wedge and your hips being the high part of the wedge, of course. I'd like you to draw your hips backwards and then bring flexion into the spine, just like we've practiced in our plank or low plank position. And then make the spine nice and long, walk the fingers forward just a little more. And then on the next breath, walk your hands back under. I'm going to resituate because my face.
Oh, there goes for water.
Nice. And I'm coming into all fours. So on all fours, I'd like you to take your hands to the edge of the mat. And then on the side of your hand, with a baby finger side, I'd like you to try to ride or run the side of the hand parallel to your mat. So some of your other fingers are going to have more inward rotation. And I'd like you to separate the finger base nice and wide and not to be on one part of the hand or the other. I'd like you to find a nice balance of weight bearing. So I'm offsetting some of the load in the arms by engaging and lifting, but using the muscles of the back. As I bring length to the spine, I'm also bringing length to the neck. Now, I'm going to let the chest kind of drift in between the arms, and I'm going to take my elbows and spiral them into the center line. And as soon as they lock out, I'd like you to back off of that ever so slightly. Nice. I'm going to keep the muscle of the body, the working area, not the joints. We don't want to stack them. Now, take your knees. I'm going to raise the right knee up first, and then lower it down, and then raise the left. So we're just rocking side to side, alternating. As the knee raises up, I want you to gain a little bit of measure on what your hips are doing. If you're moving side to side, I'd like you to kind of just pull up the left hip and lower, and do the same with the right. So the hips are really rotating. This is really kind of not a side or lateral body exercise. It's more for the rotators, and we're just kind of practicing them right now. And then I'm going to bring both knees down. Keep that chest sinking in towards the earth. If your toes are not tucked, get them tucked. And then take the knees up off the earth. Nice. Now, float forward, float back, tabletopping the back. So you're just kind of working in a parallel line, back and forth. And then drift it to the right, to the left. Do that a couple times. I'm going to get off these wrists in a couple seconds, I promise. And then circle around clockwise. And then reverse. And then stop, pull your hips up and back to down dog. Step your feet forward. Inhale, extend to a flat back. Drift that butt back. Inhale, extend a little deeper, get a little longer. Now, right now, your toes are aiming straight forward. I'd like you to lift the toes up off the mat, separate them, and then let them return back down onto the mat. So they have as much space between them as you can muster. Let's do that one more time. Lift the toes up, spread them wide, lower them back down. Now, hold on that, straighten the legs, let the upper body fall into those legs of yours. Let the hips drift backwards. Inhale, extend to a flat back. Step the palms onto the shins. Now we have a relatively straight leg. I like to get some posterior chain loading. I'm going to do that simply by drifting the hips backwards until you feel the heels mostly weighted
Let's take the elbows, rotate them externally. Let's take the palms and push them to the shin. And let's extend the spine, kind of running parallel to the earth, growing each vertebrae. Now, we practiced a little bit of breath exercising before, right? Getting from the belly. I like you to fill the belly, expand the ribs, lengthen the upper body, and hold the breath for 1 second, and then release. Let's do that one more time. Deep from the belly, up into the ribs, hold, and then release. You should feel the muscles in the rib cage kind of being nicely activated here. Belly breath, ribs, release, bend both knees. Extend the hands straight forward, rotate the palms to face. I'm gonna grab the mat, straight the mic. Put it back on my body. Now, if you can, lower the hips down a little deeper and then rise up. Now, hold up here. Let's bring our global vision back. A nice rounding of the hands. You got that cupping, fingertips pushing to each other's, elbows rotating towards the earth, arms extending away from the body, all that stuff going on. And then I'd like you to take your legs and chopstick them together, pull them together. And while you work to do that, I want to make sure you're not rotating your knees internally. We have them pointing straight forward, right out of those center or middle toes. Let's keep that chopstick active as you take your butt, pull it back, and lower it down. And see how low you can go, and then come back up. So this is modified squat. We're working the internal inner thighs, keeping the legs squeezing together without them physically moving. It's isometric as we raise and lower. I'm going to go to it one more time. Lower down, squeeze together, and then raise it back up. Reach for the sky. Exhale that air and let the arms fall. Shake it up. How are we doing over there? Good. Good. Now, draw the shoulders up. Take your hands, put them on your ribs. Now, talking about breath a lot today. Breathing is so important. Like when we sit, we really kind of forego center to lower part of the lungs. We tend to breathe through the shoulders a lot. So we're just going to practice how we really should be breathing a little bit. So where the breath originates is the diaphragm. I'd like you to kind of use that belly protrusion as the pull of the air. So let's start by pulling down, expanding out right through the belly, and then up and into the ribs. And you kind of feel the hands almost pulling apart. Inhale, exhale. When you feel hands squeezing together or pulling together on the exhale, you're kind of getting this. Now, belly breath in, ribs expand, hold, and release. And let's practice it one more time. Again, this is another exercise or skill that you can work on during the day. Big breath out. Now, bring the hands back over hearts. Chopsticks with the legs. Push the palms of the hands in that nice prayer-like pose you've got going on together. As you squeeze the legs, lower the butt. So we're just doing a little bit of variation here. Now we're going to use more of those shin muscles, those ones that we get the shin splints on. When we squeeze and come down, you should feel those muscles a lot more active, especially the deeper into the squat you go. So squeeze the legs together, lower down, and then raise it back up. Let's do it one more time. I know because everyone's having so much fun with this. And then raise back up, standing tall, right foot steps forward, left foot steps back. Today, I'd like you to take your left heel and drive it onto the earth. Nice. Now, so we're going to use force to impart more workload. So I'd like you to take the left heel, push it to the earth, and that's going to create a push forward of the body. You're going to feel some muscles, the lower leg and the left side working, the calf muscle, that's fine. Right now, we're going to focus on the right hip. So the gluteal on that side. I'd like you to take the right heel
and push it into the mat. So we have left and right heel pushing into the mat. And if that's too much load for the muscle, back off the left heel. You can just take it up off the earth ever so slightly. We're going to lean into this and we're going to grow the spine as we lean into this. And we're going to lean and grow and lean and grow and lower to where you feel like, oh, I can't go any farther. And when you get there, come back up. So we're going to practice range of motion, seeing if we can get more depth. We're going to do a few repetitions. If your weight is pushing to the ball of the big toe and that front foot, I'd like you to change the orientation. Those quadriceps, those front leg muscles are going to want to take over. I want you to force the body to work more posterior. Take that right heel, drive it to the earth. When you lower and drive it to the earth, when you come back up, one more repetition. Keep the spine long. Try not to go into spinal flexion. Come back up, and we're going to get off that leg by stepping back foot forward and switching sides. Right heel drives to the earth. Left heel drives into the earth. Both heels driving earthward as we fold forward. You will notice that balance may be a little challenged. You're going to figure this out. The muscles are going to develop a memory to give you balance, but we want overload in the muscle to strengthen those hamstrings and those gluteals of ours. Couple of forms here, couple form, no tongue form. Having trouble talking today. Yeah, and then we're going to come back up, drive that right heel, drive that left heel. Try to get a little deeper with each repetition without flexing, keeping the spine nice and long. Keep challenging the body, keep challenging the lengthening of that muscle. Slow and steady. When's the race today? I'm going to do one more repetition. I'm going to really work the heels now, heel to heel. And as I rise up, this time, I'm going to step the back foot forward and say thank you for participating. I'm kidding. Hands push to the sky. Inhale, lengthen. Really reach tall. Take the hands, open the palms to face forward. Reach, reach, reach. And then take your belly button. I'll step back, messing with the camera. Oh. Now, as we reach high, I'd like you to kind of take your pelvis and tuck under a little bit. And if you feel your gluteals kind of getting a little more active, good. Now, keep those gluteals active. Draw the hips backwards. Turn the palms to face now. Reach the arms long, get the bend of the elbow. And then lower the arms, shoulder height. Shoulder height. Reach out in front. Nice. Now, take a big breath in. On the exhale, pull the legs together. Pull the legs together. Keep the legs pulling together. Lower down. Low as you can go. Keep those legs pulling together. And then raise it back up. Sweep the hands to the sky. Float those arms down. Have a seat on the mat. Oh, my goodness. Grab some water. All right. Back into our staff pose. Separate the feet, the width of the mat.
I'll tell you in a second.
Okay. All right. Going to bring our hands out in front. I'm going to kind of start from the opposite side, our Pilates style type of sit-ups. So we're just kind of hanging out here, laying that low back, which we had a lot of work into. Hopefully you were feeling it. A lot of tension in those movements, getting a little break, those muscles. Practice what they really like, which is lengthening out and destabilizing that low back of ours. It's amazing how good that feels. Now let's inhale, extend to a flat back. Exhale, let the upper back round. And then let the pelvic girdle begin to descend, we're gonna just kind of rotate backwards through the hips, kind of getting opening the hips. I have my shoulders drifted forward, that's fine, you can kind of do that. And we're gonna roll down one vertebrae at a time. And when you arrive with the back of the head on your mat, let's try to grow that neck and then rotate it to the right. Bring the head back up center and rotate the head to the left. And then oscillate. Oscillations, movement that is rhythmic and wave-like. So we're just going to slowly enjoy the lengthening of those neck muscles that are being actively worked and stretched. And then when you're ready, take your gaze straight up at the eyes, sorry, at the sky. And then drop your chin into your chest. Reach the arms down towards the hips. We're going to elevate them slightly off the hips. And then we're going to reach the fingertips forward as we peel every vertebrae that we can off the mat slowly. And then we're going to dive the hands down between legs and extend the arms all the way up. Try to get as much length with the upper back now. And you just like get those hands reaching farther forward if you can. Keep the elbows straight. Now flex the feet. And then slowly from the pelvic girdle into the low back, let the arms just kind of drag along. Keep that chin tucked in and then lower back down. And extend the arms all the way up. And then come back up. I'm going to do one more, just because I love this exercise so much. Oh, and my muscles are so fatigued from doing all that extra stuff earlier. All right. And then we're going to do some stretching to finish this off. As we come into a seated position, I'd like you to bring your right foot and tuck it into the left thigh area. And then I'm going to use my left arm to come across the shin and wrap my right knee. To help support some of the spinal rotation we're going to impart to our spine, I'd like you to take your right hand and aim the fingers backwards and then bring the palm of the hand. So what we're doing here is we're kind of externally rotating the shoulder and supporting the spine. And then we're going to try to affect a little more rotation of the left shoulder towards the right knee. You should feel kind of a stretch down that left side of the body. Exactly. And then into the oblique, maybe down by your hip. And then I'm going to release back, aiming straight forward, switching up the sides. Same setup, opposite side. Planting that hand, making sure the fingers are rotating back. That gives that left shoulder better opportunity to externally rotate. I'm going to try to rotate now that right shoulder into the left knee as I continue to grow the spine. So the spine's growing and rotating. And then coming back center. It's kind of a nice stretch and exercise for those smaller spinal muscles that extend both legs straight. And then lie it all the way down. We're continuing to stretch this out. I'm going to take our
Less than one.
right foot onto the left thigh, and we're going to do a figure four stretch, pulling in the left thigh and putting that nice release in that right hip, mostly the external muscles of the right hip. And switch sides. There are certain benefits to doing stretches for longer than 20 to 30 seconds. But, you know, we have life to live. And if we spent all our day just stretching, we would also have an ineffective or an unbalanced body. We want muscles to be strong. And we want them to be proper length to work effectively. So some of these muscles we're stretching are the ones that are very short from sitting for long periods of time. Now, Let's return the feet back down to the floor. We're doing one final lengthening stretch. Let's point the toes, take the arms, extend them all the way up. Use the center of the body. Let's call that our navel. And from our navel center, let's get military here. Let's pull the toes and the knees in opposite direction. Fill the lungs. Remember, belly breath in, ribs expand. And then powerfully exhale it.
You're done.
And then rock and roll up to see it. Oh, my goodness. Someone's in a hurry today. This princess is in a hurry. Up to his nice seated position. I'm going to cross my legs. You can sit in any style you like. I'm going to keep my spine nice and long as I bring my hands over heart. And thank you for your great participation today. Namaste. Kirsten, no stay. John, stay.
You gotta start and end on time. Right?
Yes.